So how did you meet?
How did we meet? How did we meet?
I'm trying to remember. Clearly, it wasn't impressive.
Welcome to I've Been Meaning to Ask. My name is Valentine Njoroge, and I'm sitting in for Don Gichane because I had questions. And Reverend Julian Kyula has also kindly joined us. I'm very fascinated by your bromance. I was waiting for them. Because I feel like there's a lot of talk about toxic masculinity and all this, and then we don't see a lot of male friendships and male affection.
Wow. This is a nosedive.
Getting deep.
I'm already feeling like, okay.
Do you feel hot under the collar?
No.
Not at all?
No, I'm actually getting colder.
Oh, okay, okay. So, how did you meet? You're in Texas. Paint me a picture. You're in Texas. Was it bro at first sight or?
What is that? Is that even a term? Bro,
Well, I didn't want to say love at first sight because that has other connotations.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, wow. All right.
Never heard that before.
I think we're going to ignore you. Who invited you to the show anyway?
So how did you meet?
How did we meet? How did we meet?
I'm trying to remember. Clearly, it wasn't impressive.
Were you in the same circle, so you kind of knew each other, and then?
No. We didn't know each other. I think we
But I'll tell you this. I knew I needed to help him. When I found him in a shoe store, taking a picture of the shoe. And I just knew I have a
Ignore
mission.
the above. Ignore all the above.
I'm not telling you a lie. I'm telling you the truth. There's a store in the US called Foot Locker. And he was taking a picture. And I was just like, this guy can't be this shady. He was taking a picture of the shoe, I think, to send to people at home. You know, he was holding, and I was just like, I commit my life to help this man because this is such a horrible pose.
Okay.
So it was the pose, not the shoe.
Let me finish. So, I can tell you from that time, I just knew I've been called to his life.
Okay.
Yes.
So it was bro at first sight.
So that
mission. It was mission at first sight.
Mission at first sight.
I'm not going to tell you about the first time I laid eyes on this man. Because
That's how we met.
no, that's what I.
Please do share about the first time you laid eyes.
If I say that,
He wants to tell you I was holding a wine glass.
okay, good. Since he let it out,
Okay.
so he had a thing going on. He was throwing a party for his ex at the time.
Oh God.
Okay.
Do you have to go to
And well, you let it out. So, so I get invited. I'm told, hey, there's a party down the road. We go over there. I see a bunch of Kenyans. So of course we're in Texas, as you said. I see a bunch of Kenyans, and I'm asking, so what's the event? And they said, no, it's a party. That guy's throwing a party for his girl. So when I looked at that guy, it was this guy, and he was holding a wine glass.
Okay.
And I said, man, I'm in the wrong circles, right? Because I
In your 20s, you're holding a wine glass.
a wine glass, but not just that. Now let me tell you, here's
Because
the
Kenyans are famous for beer, not.
here's the kicker. This guy was so thin and so small. And then he had some big boots on, is all I remember. He was like floating inside his shoes. And, you know,
It was winter.
Okay.
So that's how I ended up taking him to the store and showing him the shoe he needs to buy.
Okay.
See, so that's how the whole story. But anyway, oh my God, yeah. We need to show those shoes. Oh my God.
And the shoes that Rev was wearing on Sunday.
Yeah,
Okay. So
we need to show those shoes.
This is a running joke.
No, it's not a run. It's serious. You will see who needs help when it comes to shoes. It's gonna be very clear. But anyway,
How to leave this show? Can I go?
You cannot go. So you meet, there's a running joke about shoes and wine and ex-girlfriends, and then how does the friendship develop?
No, first it was non-alcoholic wine.
Okay. Do you drink? Have you ever been a drinker, Rev?
I drank once, and that was enough introduction. So my cousins got me, I was 13 years old. They put me in a competition with my other cousins. And I got alcohol poisoning because I was out in Scotland for holiday with them, and they got us into this competition. The older cousins kind of got the younger cousins to compete, and I drank myself silly. And ever since, I can't handle alcohol. It was God's way of introducing me to this thing to say
saying never again.
Yeah, because my family, my some of my uncles, and so they do have a taste for that. So I can tell, and I've had a taste for it. But ever since that time, I've been unable. So that's why I know, even if you found me with a glass, I can assure you.
He wasn't drinking, by the way.
Okay.
He was walking around with it.
Oh,
that's the truth.
Yeah,
was it part of the look?
I guess.
It was a bad look.
It was a bad look with
It wasn't working with the boots.
Not great shoes. Okay. Do you drink?
I drink water. I love coffee.
Traditional
I
alcohol.
don't.
Traditional drinks. That's why I told you I needed to help him.
Okay. I can't tell if you're joking or not. Is there a Moratina in
No. And by the way, when you were talking about Scotland, it's actually the water. It was just up the road, and it was, of course, it was poisoning. If you take Moratina or any of those things, anybody will get poisoned. But no, I don't drink.
Okay. So how do you get from Texas to Kenya and ministry? How does that transition happen?
Do you want the real story, or you want?
I want the real story. Were you in ministry in the U.S.?
Yes, we were in ministry in the U.S. We both were elders at a particular church.
Okay.
In the States. At a very tender age, we were flung into leadership, and
who says stuff like that? Who are flung into leadership? Sounds like a Rambo movie. Who are flung into leadership?
We showed up. We never. The intention was never. Well, let me speak for myself.
Is there a word like flung?
There is.
Flung. Yeah. Please give.
That's the past tense.
Someone give him a dictionary.
So you can be flung into leadership. Is that the correct use of the word?
Yes. Flung into leadership.
Somebody give him a dictionary.
But who would have thrown you into the leadership?
I'll tell you.
Okay.
I was just getting there, and
okay.
we were rudely interrupted. But this man of God was trying to get a church started, and he got it started, and everything was going well. And then one day he decides we're going to have an evening service. Now, majority of our, of his congregation were our age mates and our friends. Yeah, so you know how it is when you're out there. You have so many freedoms. So you imagine, Africans leaving Africa, going over to this place. Here you are so sheltered. Out there you're feeling all these freedoms. People who couldn't buy cars now have 3 cars. You have your own apartment, whatever, right? You have money.
And that freedom from family and expectation.
Freedom from family and expectation, yeah. And then we were young, hot-blooded. I told you about his ex. And by the way, all his exes live in Texas.
Until today?
That's just a song. But where was I? So the pastor requests and says, hey, we want to start evening services. We're like, man, we ain't going to give an entire Sunday to go into church. So that particular evening, when the evening service was to start, we said, no, forget this. And we had people come over for a movie over at someone's apartment.
Sabotaging the service?
So, no, that wasn't the plan. It's just we had other plans.
Okay.
Right? So let's just say that's how I ended up in leadership, because the service was over at my apartment.
Aha. Okay, so you actually got into ministry before Rev did?
No, he was born in ministry. Let him give you the story. He was an altar boy.
So we got flung.
He's not a new one. I'm not going to hear the end of this.
Yes, you are.
Is that how you flung here to Kenya? What airline did you use?
One Airways.
So I think life's just been amazing. So in the US, we were in ministry.
Okay.
We got into eldership, got into good trouble, bad trouble, but we had an amazing pastor. We must say, for the kind of people we were. I think we were on the edge.
Okay.
We were on the edge of choosing. I think we're going to be backbench church kind of people once in a while. If this man hadn't come when he came, I don't think we'd have been. I can't think of it. God had a plan. I just don't know where we would be. I don't know if we'd be in Kenya, first of all.
Okay.
I don't know if we'd be doing ministry, because when I left Kenya, I left from the Nairobi Baptist Church. So, for most of the people who I was in ministry with at that young age, most of them are still Christians, still practicing, but not as engaged with the church. I don't know if we'd have had this in-depth relationship calling. No, I really don't. The way things were going.
What did he do, or was it being part of the community?
He was firm.
Okay.
He's very firm. You couldn't have a democratic pastor for where we were. We really were flung into this seriousness. Because we were going. I think we were going to be bad boys. Not crazy boys, but I think we were going to be lured into the world quite hard.
So is it that you were doing well, and if it wasn't for this pastor, you might have felt maybe I don't need God as much?
We were just normal people. We started as waiters. I was waiting, others were welding.
Were you really welding?
I was, but he's putting it so badly. But anyway.
Okay.
Look, we did everything. We did valet jobs. We did whatever you needed to do to pay the bills, right?
Yes.
So it's not like we're doing well. We're just existing. We had
those
this
long
place.
hours.
Pastor Michael, Don, and I had this place called Carrington's. Oh my God. It was a sports bar. Like we'd spend our entire summer in a sports bar shooting pool. Like we go work, come back, shoot pool. I mean, our 20s were
We're good at pool, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're working, you're shooting pool. This is your life.
This is our life. And then you're just going home at 1 a.m. smelling of smoke. You were with drunk people.
You weren't drinking, you were not smoking.
But
you're
you're
just shooting pool.
So you could have wasted your life.
Without a doubt.
I mean, we started doing okay.
Okay.
But our lives were, they were just the usual America, freedom, do what you want to do.
Okay.
So when he came into our lives, we felt very parented and we're like, man, this is not what we signed up for. I mean, for crying out loud, we have parents at home who locked us up. We don't need someone locking us up.
A new parent,
I mean, this pastor, and I say this in all love, would knock on our door, and if you don't open, he'll pass through the window. I woke up
Wow.
one day. I woke up one day and there was a man in my room, and I'm like, is this an angel or is this the enemy? Is this my time? Because I'm like, I worked until 1 a.m. And I just find someone standing and he says, Kyula, nimekupigia masimu uchukui. That was him. Like
what is he getting you to do? Go to church?
Through? Yes, amka. Kuna Bible study. Amka. Kuna watu wa kwenda kuchukua ulete Bible study. That was him.
Did you at any point have a vision? Did God show you, like, in the future, this might be your life? Because sometimes God gives us a glimpse, like a little...
Well, not for me. For sure, not for me.
Yeah.
Not even a hint of I might be standing in front of people.
Never.
On a stage, holding a mic, nothing.
Only when... Come on, you got prophetic words. When he now got serious with the church and we started going, then he'd bring guests who would start speaking to us prophetically.
Okay.
And I was a Baptist. I didn't know prophetic utterings.
Yeah.
I mean, we're like, whoa, who are you? What are you doing? Because we were not used to, thus says the Lord,
I feel like in Kenya, when we were growing up, because we're in the same age group, the prophetic was not like every Sunday. It was like a weird pastor comes around and he says something and then everyone's whispering like, do you really believe this?
I watched my first Benny Hinn video in America. I'd never even known who the man was.
Okay.
Like I was that Baptist.
We were both Baptists.
Yes.
He was at Nairobi Baptist, I was at Parklands Baptist. So the foundation was Southern Baptist Foundation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you never quite interact with, the miraculous, the supernatural. That was not something that we were exposed to at all. Yeah.
And I think like many Kenyans, like at that time in the 80s, 90s growing up, that was the church. I don't remember many churches where there was healing and, okay.
No. Now when we discovered this other side,
going on.
we realized this stuff has been going on in Kenya from like the 50s, like people actually say Rabashi Karada Barada. You're like, whoa, it's been happening in Kenya for that. It's been there.
Yeah.
My parents were the second couple to get married at Deliverance Church.
Oh.
Right? 1972 by Apostle Joe Kyle. They were the second couple. So they were already in that. The reason they changed and started going to these other churches was because of transfers and because as children we ended up going to Baptist, so they kind of settled into Baptist. But like he said, we were not exposed to that until we got to America. We were not just exposed, we were immersed.
We were totally immersed.
Okay, I thought you were going to say flung
we
again.
Were flung.
We were flung into this. No.
Okay.
But you see, before I left for the States, I happened to attend a meeting by Evans Murima before he passed on. That was my first ever encounter with the supernatural. And I was like, man, these guys are nuts. And it was something that stuck at the back of my mind where I said, man, there's a group of people, I don't know what they're saying, I don't know what they're doing, but it is different. I was taken by a cousin of mine who used to attend the church, and they said, man, come. So we went out to, I think it was Shan Cinema at the time, somewhere in Gara. And it was, I remember that was my very first encounter, and it's something that stuck. Because the one thing I remember is when we walked into that room, the presence was so heavy, I physically felt like the building shook.
Wow.
And I remember leaving that place saying, what? So when I heard that he had passed on, and people were praying for him to be raised from the dead, I was like, if there's anyone who can do it, it's these guys.
Wow.
But that was it. It was just like a scene out of a movie at the back of my mind.
So was it then something you wanted for yourself, or?
I knew too little about it to even want it. I just thought it was, I didn't feel like it was something I would, let me put it differently. It felt like something I would love to experience again to understand it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you meet your wives. How did you meet your wives?
You want the real story or the...
I want the real story
I'll
of
tell you
everything.
the real story.
The real version, how you met your wives.
Oh, the real version. I'm the only one who can give the real version.
Okay. Why? Did you know them both before? You did know them both
of
before.
course. No.
Let me give you the real story.
Okay.
It's going to take you round in circles. Very simple. We see this girl in church, and both of us recognize her. Well, not recognize, like see her, and we're like, whoa. But Dawn's on the left, I'm on the right, and somebody stops me, I don't know, for a prayer request. Anyway, by the time I open my eyes from their prayer request, Dawn has reached the target.
The promised land.
So I'm like,
It was the leading of the Holy Ghost.
I was like, these people and their prayer requests.
In the way of destiny.
The Lord works in miraculous ways. So
Mysterious
ways. So 2-3 Sundays later, he's like, hey, bro, Pastor Paul has called me for a meeting. Could you drop her home? And, and if you don't mind, whatever, I'll take her. So I take her home, and I'm like, okay.
How being?
Nancy.
Yeah.
Okay.
The lady who first visited.
Yes. So I
Okay.
take her home. But on the way home, I'm like, do you want to get anything? Do you want us to stop for anything? She says, oh, my siblings are home. I don't mind getting them some food. I'm like, okay. In my head, I'm like, I'm a student. Before you suggest Olive Garden or some
And you had
expensive
siblings.
Italian, I'm like, do you want KFC? So can I get KFC? So we stop, we get KFC. And when we get home, she's like, thank you very much for bringing me. She's like, but my, oh, hold on. My sister wants to say thank you for the food. So the sister pops out the head and she's like, thank you so much for the food. I'm like, Father, thank you for sending that prayer request my direction. And that's how it happened.
Perfect timing. So that's how you met Amanda.
That's how I met Amanda.
Okay, then how do you know that this is the person to marry?
So that's not your question.
You go deep
Yes.
quickly.
Yeah, the question has
How
been.
do
The
you
question
know?
has been.
We have a
flung to
short
you.
amount of time.
How do you know that this is the person to marry? That's you see, for anybody who is in
Pray as you answer.
where's that coffee? Why are they taking so long with our coffee? You know, cat.
Do you want to answer first? How did you know that Amanda
No,
was
you
the one to
flung the
marry?
question to him. The question was flung to Don.
Let's go. So I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you what happened. As a young man, we talked about being very hot-blooded. As any young human being.
Tell me more. I've never been a young man, a hot-blooded young man.
As a young person, you have all these, feelings. You have all this, you want to be in a place where you have somebody special. At some point, you want to have somebody special at all times. Okay. Now, I didn't know this until now that I think back, but I loved being with somebody who loves me and somebody I would love. Now, in pursuit of that, I found myself in various relationships where you come to find, okay, let's see if this one works. But it so happened that at least every year we would try 2 or 3 just to see would it work, right?
Is this your flowery way of saying you did the rounds, Pastor Don?
I did. I did. No, not
3 a year.
2 to 3 a year. How many years?
Quarterly.
It was just 2 years.
Quarterly.
It was just 2 years. No, I mean,
There's a young man doing that math. It's like 2 years quarterly. We're at 8 now.
4 months per person.
No. Let me put it properly. You meet someone, you want to get to know them. So what you do, you spend time with them to get to know, who they truly are. And that's what I did. And then at some point, a couple of years down the road, maybe 3-4 years down the road, I got tired of it. I remember driving home one evening, and I was in prayer, and I told the Lord, I just come from breaking up with someone. And I said, I'm actually tired of doing this thing. And I remember telling the Lord, I've tried this relationship thing with my own strength. I really would like to try the next one with your strength. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And I remember sitting in the parking lot before I got into my place, and it was a very simple prayer that I made. But I must say it was the only time I ever prayed about a relationship. Only time. And as a believer, that's, it's, when I think back at it, it's quite something. So I said, Lord, I'm done doing this with my own strength. I want to do it with your own strength. I don't want to date again. And the next person I date, may they be my wife. And that was it.
Okay.
And they couldn't keep their hands off of each other. God, these two. They were annoying.
They were annoying.
They were always.
Are they the PDA couple?
They were cuddling, holding hands. You're having a conversation, then you're like, where did they go? They're stuck somewhere together. They're kissing each other's foreheads. Since I can't say they were kissing lips, they were kissing each other's foreheads. Because he was an elder, so let me say forehead.
Forehead. Elders don't kiss.
Yeah, so
elders don't kiss. Elders have never kissed. What are you talking about?
So they were. It was. Yeah.
But that's who God sent my way. Yeah.
They were head over heels.
So was it the next person you asked out, or the next person who asked you out? Like, why her?
So,
because you said the next person I date, so.
I already knew her. She was already a good friend of mine. Remember, we had met at church. She had rededicated her life back to Christ. I had walked her through the process We used to do Bible study together. We used to talk about scriptures together. She was a great friend of mine, to the point that she used to make chapatis, and I would take my existing girlfriend to her house for chapatis.
I see why you needed to be off the market. Your existing girlfriend.
Yeah, we used to go over. I mean, remember, she's a good friend, and because she made the baddest chapatis in town. You know, sometimes when you're out there and you don't know
that taste of home.
Exactly, that little taste of home.
Yes.
So when it crosses, you're like, forget the Olive Gardens and the Chili's and the Houstons or whatever the restaurants were. You know, we would call her up and say, hey,
Okay.
Can you make us chapatis? And she would always welcome us in. And anyway, so fast forward, God shows me that this is going to be your wife. I said, what? You know the way you sit up and you're like, and this is 2 months after I had made the prayer. I had...
Shows you a vision? Is it a dream? Or you're sitting with her and you're like, this is it?
No,
He had eaten a chapati.
That was like no others. That
No.
was like no others.
No. You know.
No, but let's not joke, because there is a joke out there about Kaliang Japos. And we don't want this thing to go left. So.
So, I can't get that picture off my mind. So what happened was, it was hard to stay without someone. It kind of felt hard to stay without someone. This was the longest period I'd stayed without someone.
2 months.
2 months. I'm talking about someone I'm talking to regularly. I'm not talking about we're dating and someone you're trying to get
so
to.
you were lonely, and
I was lonely.
2 months.
And not just, no, but I'll tell you, it was different because other times it would be easy to just step out and say, hey, let's hang out, let's go to the movies, let's do this with somebody else. But for these 2 months, I had told God, I don't want to date no one else. I don't want to, I don't want to meet anybody else for now. I don't want, and then the Lord, it just, I can't tell you whether I was in church, at home, or what. It was just an impression that this is
your wife. Wow. Okay.
But you need to hear his story.
So Rev, how did you know Amanda was the one?
I don't know if you ever just know this is the one. You just make up your mind that this is a person you believe you want to do life with, and you commit. And I knew. I mean, she did things to me and for me that I just felt very strongly about. Like she'd.
I want to pinch Pastor Don. Go on.
What just happened?
Let me explain. Oh my God. Okay, yeah. So she. You're such.
There's a private joke here that I want to know. I want to know.
No, it's because I said she did things to me. So
yes.
No, she did. I mean, she would give me her car. She would give me her, she'd let me be a man.
Okay.
And she didn't, because I also met her when I was going through a very tough season.
I was just about to ask, you didn't have a car?
I didn't.
Okay.
And she had this
amazing, beautiful car. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's leave the car details out. I never hear Don pushing for something. He wants to make fun of me.
Okay.
Because he gave me a car once.
Please, focus. How did you know she was the one?
And this car he gave me.
Wait.
Amanda and I would go somewhere. We'd have to lie down after we switch off the car because it used to have this gunshot sound when you switch it off, and you didn't know when the gunshot would go off. So the first time we were in the
black
school,
people in the US.
yeah, the first time I picked Amanda up, we're heading to the school, we switch off the car, and all of a sudden we're walking out and we just hear, "Pwah!" and everybody gets on the floor. So from that time, Amanda and I would go for a movie. We switch off, and it just became a routine. Nobody even used to tell us. We just lie down because when it sounds, you don't even want to look back and see you guys in the car.
So he gave you a setup of a car.
Let's just say we had a blast.
Grateful.
Let's just say we had a blast.
You gave them a whole car. This is
the only takeout.
But wait. Let's talk. So you meet Amanda. You don't have a car. She has a car. From what you're describing,
I think when I met her, I had a car. I'm just saying down the line.
There was a time she was
as we're
doing.
relating, there's a time she was working. I was still in between jobs, trying to figure out things, and she supported me.
Okay.
Stood by me, you know, encouraged me. And she was, and Amanda was not, at the time when I first saw her, she wasn't a church girl.
Okay.
But the pastor one day on his way home, Pastor Paul, stopped by her house and just believed that was the night God had ordained for Amanda and the whole household to get saved.
Wow.
And she got saved that night. So I'm also walking with her through this walk of Christianity. And she's a very simple lady. She doesn't like complicated things. You know, I thought I was quite complicated, so she was trying to uncomplicate me. I was trying to complicate her. So in the midst of all that, we just knew. I never, and I've paid for it. I never even proposed. I just called her to come. We get married.
This was my next question.
That's
how did you propose?
No,
you proposed over the phone?
To help him. It's terrible.
You proposed over the phone?
I didn't even propose over the phone. I just told her come.
You see?
Now is the time.
Yeah. Traditional African man. This is the problem.
Kamba men are supposed to be romantic.
Is it?
Supposed to be.
I didn't want to play games. I just told her, I'm serious, come. Or forever hold your peace.
You see the problem?
Where were you as you're saying?
I was in Kenya.
You were in Kenya, she's still in the US. You're asking her to move countries.
Yes.
Come and marry you.
Yes.
You do it over the phone, like a set of instructions. Come.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's not even repentant. That's part of the problem.
How did you make up for this?
I'm going to make up for it. I've been making up for it from that day. And I'm still going to make up for it till eternity.
Kneel down. Propose now.
Don't worry, I will propose 10 times more. I will propose. I will do things for her that will make her believe that maybe that come was from heaven.
Okay.
Jesus is Lord.
I love that this is on camera, so we have proper record of it.
Oh no, I have no problem.
Amanda,
now.
you can thank me later.
So 17 years later, or 16 and some, I'm now 17 actually. I'm now, I think.
He's now ready to propose.
Now you can propose. So how did you propose to Nancy?
Tell the truth.
Problem is I learned from my big brother.
You did the same thing over the phone from Kenya?
No. You know what's funny? I always think I proposed. I always believe I proposed. Believe.
This is so underwhelming. Can I just say? Like I was so waiting for this to be a part of the interview where I was going to hear a great,
how romantic it was. Helicopter came and the ring was under the pool.
At least some flowers. At least like a plate that says, "Will you marry me in chocolate?"
Oh dear. You know those things are great and they're important. I actually believe they're important. But they're not the thing that causes people to want to get married.
That's true. And usually the conversation has been had in advance.
Yeah.
But we just want to hear of a moment, you know?
Well, here's my moment. Okay. This is actually when I actually think I proposed.
So does your wife say you didn't propose?
Valentine. So what happened was...
Please answer.
Yeah.
So because you keep saying, I believe I proposed.
She's always been meaning to ask.
Yeah, meaning to. Can you
flag me?
I will fling the question. Go on. When you believe you proposed.
When I believe I proposed was actually after God had told me that this is going to be your wife. And the day he told me that, I couldn't sleep. So at about 11 p.m., get into the car, drive over to her place. I say, hey, are you awake? Are you awake? And she said, yes, I'm awake. I could tell she was asleep. So she gets up, dresses up, comes downstairs. I tell her, come. So she comes downstairs. We drive to the parking lot at Walmart supermarket. We're sitting out there, and I'm telling her, listen, So I'm doing a rundown of my entire life. Remember, she was a good friend of mine. So think about a great friend who you always reach out to whenever there's trouble. So she's thinking there's something crazy going on with this guy.
Yes, you've called at 11 p.m.
11.
And
Not just called, I've shown up. I'm outside her house. So she comes, we go to the parking lot, and I begin to tell her all these things. I'm leading to telling her what the Lord has told me about her. So we get into this conversation. I tell her this whole story. I say, look, you remember so and so, you remember so and so. This is how it went. Da, da, da. So I'm doing the whole rundown, and then I get to the punchline, and I say, look, what God has showed me is you're going to be the mother of my children.
That's his proposal.
That was
she's your friend.
Yeah.
And then you land with God has told me. And she said?
And she stared at me and she said, look, if this is what God has told you, the first instruction I want you to do is I want you to go back to all those girls that you've broken their hearts and tell them what God has told you.
Wow.
I said, my God, what kind of... But then, by the time we were done with our short conversation, it was time for me to drop her back home because it was 6:30 in the morning and I needed to go to work.
Short conversation
So
from
we
11
spoke
to 6.
the whole night.
These are stalker tendencies. If someone did that today, we would be like, this stalker, what is happening?
That was my proposal.
So a 7-hour conversation, you proposed. When does she believe you proposed?
You'd have to bring her on the show.
She doesn't believe he proposed.
Okay, so they both don't believe they were proposed to.
Yeah.
Mine knows and I know. Hey, let's get this right. Mine knows I did and I know I didn't.
You know you didn't, and
This
you're
other
making
case,
amends.
He thinks he did. We are all telling him, Oga.
He did
You
not
did not propose.
I learned best from my big brother.
I like her reaction.
Yeah.
I like her reaction. Go make amends and then
Go make
come
amends.
back.
And I did.
Okay, so you're in Kenya, you marry sisters around the same time. What does that do to your friendship?
Wow.
I don't know. Well, we're not measuring it.
Because you become brothers, you're now family.
Yeah, we were best friends before we met the girls.
Okay.
So we were already buddies. We were already close.
It just meant now I'll help him for life.
You'll help him for life.
From the time of the shoe, God had cemented this thing as a commitment for life.
You felt
We need to
abandoned.
show that picture of his shoes again. At this segment, we need to, so we know who needs help.
Okay.
But I guess it was solidified. It was, now you get to the place where you're friends first and then now you're family. Sometimes it complicates things. It doesn't always fix things.
How does it complicate things?
I mean, family is family, and sometimes you don't
But
always
families have
agree.
different dynamics. So,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And you don't always agree on everything. And sometimes, one family member has done this, and it ends up coming, and you have your opinion about it, and somebody else has their opinion about it. It doesn't mean that it will be rosy all the time. It doesn't mean also that it will not be rosy, right? So you have both spectrums, just like in any other relationship. It's just that now you're family.
But I love that you brought this up. We see this in families. People fight or they disagree or there's some conflict, tension. People take sides. Do you take sides? And if you do, which sides are you taking? Is it Gichane's versus Kyula's, or is it the boys versus the sisters? How does that look?
That's a good question. Wow. Have your coffee. You've not had your coffee yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Wow. Did you write all these questions down?
I did.
Did someone?
I
Who
did.
did you talk to before you came?
The Holy Spirit.
So, I'll tell you, because I think life happens in seasons. And in those seasons, you will go through very interesting dynamics. So, there are amazing pros and cons to marrying sisters. There are amazing pros and cons to not marrying sisters, right? Or not marrying in the same family. Because a family will go through a season. And so as a result, you're drawn into that season. And you may have positions about the season they're in, but it's a very sensitive matter. And I'm talking about extended families. Because first, your primary family is It's the family, because you left your mother and father.
And cleaved.
Yes. So I think through time, we've come to, there's an evolution around how to relate, the do's and don'ts. And just like any friendship, you go through storming, then you go through all those other stages. I don't know what they are, but the first stages I always remember of storming.
You're flung into the storm.
You're flung into the storm. So in this understanding, you know, so if Amanda and I, because you know, it's not been rosy all along. So when Amanda and I have a problem, what's Nancy's position? And what does Nancy's position do to Don, my friend? It's complex. Oh.
Yes, where she's
Isn't
like, your
it?
friend is wrong.
Yes.
Have you had moments where you're like, Julian, buy flowers, apologize, you're in the wrong? Or you're saying, Don, take her on that trip, you've messed
But
up.
We've told each other truth.
We have.
We've told each other truth about our relationships. That has happened a lot. More than the girls think it happens, because men don't advertise their conversations.
Wow. That's like.
You know?
No.
It
Let me
really is.
explain.
No.
In the sense that a woman would hope you're telling them, do you really talk to your friend? You know, like Nancy might think,
That's true.
how come you don't tell your friend these things? But I'm not going to tell him things and then go tell Nancy I told him. You understand?
Okay.
Whereas, as girls, they might. Mimi nilimwambia. Unajua mimi nilimwambia. We won't do that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we don't have tough conversations, even points of agreeing to disagree on certain positions.
So you have privacy between your friendship, and then you have privacy in your marriages.
Wait, let me
So-
think. These questions, I
What's
have to think far about this.
No.
What you're saying is there's a
He's
conversation.
thinking about the repercussions.
There's
The
a
answer is
conversation
yes.
you have with Amanda that you will not necessarily have with
absolutely.
Dawn, and then there are conversations you will have here that don't necessarily make it into your marriages. That's what I mean by
It's a
privacy.
dangerous question. Whichever way you answer that, you know, it kind of feels one side is getting shortchanged. But the true answer to that is yes. It's
Okay.
got to be, because the relationships are different. One is a marriage relationship, and the other one is a, what did you call it? A bromance relationship.
A bromance.
It's you
Correct.
see,
There are things we can talk about. For instance, we might be in a financial crunch,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
And I've had the conversation with my wife that this is what's going on. But there are details I might discuss with Dawn that I'm taking a view about protecting my wife from certain stress. The ladies are like, you should be completely transparent. Okay?
Yes.
Which I agree, we should be. I mean, and the more we've grown, the more we realize we should be. But at the same time, you study your partner's temperament, capability to respond to certain things, and you also weigh. For instance, if I go tell my wife, there's no school fees, okay? I might have told him before I tell her. Because in telling him, I'm not telling him a situation, I'm telling him we need to, I really opened a Pandora's box here.
oh my God.
We need to solve this
Your
problem.
cat.
Okay.
We need to solve this problem.
Right.
Right? Because he and I are business partners. Something's coming, we need to factor this mathematics in. Are we together?
Yes.
Bromance, business partner. Wife conversation, I'm working on this. It's not
Okay.
detailing.
But wife is also prayer partner,
Yes,
and wife is helper.
correct. But I think
This is not going
there's
the
a
way I thought it was
no.
gonna go.
I think, and from what I've seen, there's a way that growth continues to happen until there's complete conversation with wife. And I'm not saying you've left anything out. You've communicated differently.
Okay.
That's so powerful.
You've
that
not
he
left
said that.
anything
Okay.
out. You've communicated differently, because I've not forgotten that I'm also her protector.
That's true.
I'm not going to put her through some of my stresses.
Okay.
I will protect her. And that's usually a fighting point for a lot of couples, by the
Yes.
way, because
Someone's like, I want to know.
I want to know everything, because a lot of them don't want the surprise of we're just getting evicted, we're getting whatever. But I've taken a stand, and it's cost me sometimes, even in my relationship with my wife. I've taken a stand that I will protect you from some things.
And I will bear this burden.
I will let the arrows come, you won't see them. I've taken that position, but I know my wife. My wife would rather, let's share these arrows. And I'm like, no, you just know I've got this. So we are working on that. We're always hearing other views and conversations about how should that be. Because I would love for my wife to be my business partner. Come, we are all here. Books are fully open, transparent. But I've always said, as an entrepreneur, there's too much unpredictability. Are we together?
Yes.
As an entrepreneur, there's too much unpredictability. And because of how organized my wife is, there's a particular way of organizing. So God has had to blend us together to continue figuring out language, vision, direction. And we're still on that journey. I'm not going to sit here and tell you we have figured it out. But I will say, I'm not going to allow my sleepless nights to be her sleepless nights. And that sounds crazy, but for me it's a position I've taken, that I will do whatever I need to do to protect you guys, because my biggest role as a husband is to protect you. And I take that very seriously. And I'm not going to tell you that God has told me that I go sacrifice Isaac. I'm not telling you that, because you're going to get anxious, you're going to panic, you're going to get very stressed. But God has told us to go to a land called nowhere that He'll show us. Let's collaborate. That detail I'll give you. But Isaac, I might tell Don, God wants no land.
It's a tough balance, because your wife is your helper. You should be praying together.
I agree. I don't know how to explain it.
There are people, and there are marriages where people say we fast together, we pray together, we're trusting God for X.
Yeah.
And so with prayer, and prayer also adds intimacy into a relationship.
Correct.
Yeah. Yes.
Let me chime in and say this, Valentine. I think what needs to be very clear is the fact that what he was talking about is being able to share all the nitty-gritty details of a matter, as opposed to let's pray about this. So for instance, coming in and saying, we have $1 million deficit. It's not as important as saying, babe, let's pray for provision. In this, let me paint the picture. If he and I were not business partners, and he was talking to, if he was employed, he would probably have a conversation with his boss about something.
Right.
That he will not necessarily have to go tell his wife every conversation that he's had with his boss, right? Does that make sense?
And I'll tell you why you're struggling. You're struggling because you're a woman.
I was about to say,
if we open this debate and you sit with men, you'll hear very similar things to what you're saying. And if we sit with ladies, we'll hear very similar reservations, just like the ones you're having. Because
even with my own mother, this comes up. My mom is frequently my prayer partner.
Okay.
And we'll pray for something, and then it happens. She gets her blessing or whatever. Then she doesn't tell me, and I'm like, Mom, I'm still praying. You should have
about the breakthrough.
You should have told me. And she won't always tell me everything.
Yeah.
So in as much as we're praying together, she's like, I'm still her daughter in her head.
I think forging together as two people takes a lifetime.
Okay, I like that.
And that's why you can find a grandpa and grandma who still don't see eye to eye on certain things, but they've forged most parts. You may find 80% forging. So I think it takes a lifetime, and God allows it to be so, to also mold you, and to mold her,
and change you.
Okay.
Yeah,
and to change her, because I have seen the situation, and I do agree, where there's 100% transparency on where is the business, what is happening, where business partners, books are open, what is happening, and it works. And I've seen the situation where there's full transparency and it doesn't work.
doesn't work.
And I've seen the situation where there's some level of, I want to protect them from everything, some things that are going on, and it works. And I want to protect them from some things and it doesn't work. It's not a question of,
It's not a
this is
one-size-
automatically going to
Yeah.
work. There's no prescription. It's the two of you understanding. And I think there are things my wife probably doesn't tell me.
Okay.
That she may be like, I don't know if Julian can handle this.
Okay.
To be honest, I respect that. And when I say that, I mean about, maybe even about me. That she may say, I'll wait for you to mature a bit in this area before I tell you this area of
Okay.
yourself. Because you can't tell your husband everything in the first year. You can't tell your wife everything in the first year. You're always discovering. And let me tell you what I think is happening with many young
powerful.
couples. Everybody wants to tell everyone everything by year 4. It's impossible.
This is a mistake I've made in dating. It's telling you.
This sounds like a marriage retreat, kind of a seminar conversation.
But that's the truth, isn't it?
Yeah,
You can't
absolutely, 100%.
exhaust
Yeah.
your spouse's flaws and
Okay.
your spouse's strengths on the first 5 years of a marriage. God has designed it that it's a lifetime. In
Okay.
between, you may have 5 very bad years.
Absolutely.
In between, you could have 7 very bad
Very
years.
bad.
Yeah.
And 35 beautiful years after that. Why does God allow that? God allows it to allow our pride. I've had tough years in my marriage. I've had some great years in our marriage. Now I'm clear it's not always going to be a smooth road.
Yeah.
What does that mean for Julian? You know, in America, they have these 6-lane highways. And they tell you, they write on the mirrors, right? On the rear view, not the rear view mirrors, the side
The
mirrors.
side mirrors.
Yeah.
They always write, objects may be closer than they appear to be.
Right.
Please beware of
Take
the
caution.
blind
Yeah,
spot.
absolutely, yeah.
So what happens is on a highway, when you look at the mirror, you may see it's empty. But actually, when you're being taught how to drive, they tell you to turn your head a little bit
Because the car is just behind your tail
because
light.
of a
blind
blind
side.
spot
Right.
on the mirror,
Yeah.
isn't it? So if you change lanes without turning your head a little bit, you may think the mirror is telling you there's nothing. Now,
But it's right there.
all of us have blind spots. You think you're handling things perfectly,
Yeah.
but you turn and there's damage
Okay.
because you were not aware of your blind spot. So God allows you to start learning your blind spots, and there's no one better in your life to teach you about blind spots
Than your spouse.
Than your
Absolutely.
spouse.
100%.
So how does that play out here?
Where he's not my spouse.
He's not your spouse, but you're in.
Thank you, Jesus.
You're in a decades-long relationship, which is why I wanted to have this conversation. You know, marriage, you're tied legally, spiritually. You know, you're tied in many ways. But a friendship is you choose, and you could just opt out, and the opt-out is not particularly difficult. It's not as difficult as a marriage.
Yeah.
So how does that? Are there things you're like, hey, Don can't handle this one? Or are there things where you're like, Julian can't handle this?
Well, I think in every relationship, there will be areas or places where you find somebody is probably stronger or weaker in. It doesn't mean that they're not a friend. It doesn't mean that they're not the person who is supposed to be with you at that time as a great friend, right? It doesn't mean that they're not. You see, like in his case, he's also my pastor. So there are so many levels of interaction.
Your friends,
right? My friend,
business partners, your family,
everything.
and
So
then
when
there's this spiritual.
It gets complicated, and we've been asked this many times. How do you separate all these different areas by which you operate? It's keeping to your lane, going back to the highways. It's keeping to your lane, knowing what lane am I on right now? What are we talking about? If it's family, we're sticking to family. You're not bringing in business because there was a business disagreement that now it affects family or it affects this, you know? It's sticking to your lane and understanding. And also, there's one thing that I really have appreciated even with our friendship with him is we are quite open. And that same transparency that is needed in marriage is the same thing that you must be able to, you know, scripture talks about speak to one another in love, but speak the truth to one another in love.
In love.
Right? If somebody comes and tells you the truth, you know whether they are saying it in love or out of love. Yeah. Another scripture talks about, a friend's wounds can be trusted. You would rather someone who is close to you, someone who you know is a friend, not just close to you, because someone can say they're close to you, but they're not truly close to you. But if a friend of yours comes and tells you something that doesn't sit right, because it feels like it's something negative, you can trust that friend over the kisses of someone who's your enemy.
Okay. So you mentioned seasons, like even in marriage. Have you had seasons where like I need some distance from Don or I need some distance from Julian, or you're just not getting along?
I don't honestly remember a season I've ever felt like I need to be away from Don.
That's how cool I am. I have this effect.
And you know what? We've been there for each other. Like we go through some crap.
Yeah, because business, as you mentioned,
but
being an
some
entrepreneur.
things far outweigh. It's like we have an unspoken rule about loyalty and relationship that far outweighs material things. Right? I don't need to think twice about what would happen if I was not here.
Oh.
I don't need to think twice. I know he's got my back. And so I hope he knows I have his.
This guy is getting romantic now. He's getting so emotional.
So
Be in the moment first.
So that's what he does to fight.
I don't want to cry. I don't want to cry.
That's what he does to fight tears.
Oh my goodness, that's the sweetest thing he ever said.
Ultimately, if you're in a relationship for over 25 years with someone, you get to a point where it's not conditional, right? It's covenant. And because it's covenant, it far outweighs business, even ministry. And because it's family, it's covenant. So I think I can say, of course you have your days, your two moods, your whatever, you've got your small stresses that may come here and there, but ultimately, at the back of your mind, you just know, this guy has my back. So whatever it is, and I don't think there's anything we can't talk about. So that also helps that then this is also an accountability partner.
Absolutely.
So you can go to them and say, this is how I'm feeling and how I'm seeing things right now. And they say, boss, let me slap you back to reality. So, can you consider 1, 2, 3? What, can you even hear yourself right now? Can you go calm down and you come in 2 days, we discuss this thing. I'm not even going to talk to you right now about it. That's where we are. We don't hide anything.
So how does that work when, so 1 minute you're Boyz, then you go into ministry, you're his spiritual authority?
Look, we don't.
Or it doesn't work that way.
We don't pull spiritual rank on each other, right? Just he says I'm his pastor, but I've never pulled that card on him. We had a relationship before we had these titles.
Okay.
We're together. So I believe it's really just a question of, did God bring this person into your life as a person that will be there with you for the vision? Is this a Joshua Caleb relationship? Then if it is, accepted for what it is.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. The kingdom of God is about collaboration. There's nothing God asks us to do that we do completely by ourselves. We have destiny partners.
Yes.
How do you identify your destiny partners and then take care of that relationship? Because many of us, we've destroyed or we've been callous with what might have been a destiny relationship. Yes.
Wow, that's a good question. Look, I remember one of the first times that I met him when we were still back in the States, and I knew he would be a friend for a long time. I knew that. How it was all going to play out, I don't know. I believe that there are people you meet, and if you are sensitive enough, you would know that this is a keeper. If you're sensitive enough. There are also friends who are seasonal, and that's all right. It doesn't mean that it's, they're there for a season to take you through a process or to walk with you or to be there with you for a process or a time. But for him, I can tell you, I knew he was gonna be someone who will be my friend for life. I can't tell you because of I can't say because of this or because of that, because it had nothing, like he said, you know, our relationship had nothing to do with material. In fact, when we met, we were both very broke and in school.
Hence the Foot Locker pictures.
No. But to think through, to think back over time, we've got to be able to trust God with the relationships and the people He brings our way. To know, is this someone we will walk with for a long time or not? But I think the sensitivity also of understanding how to relate with one another is also key, so that you don't do things that ruin the relationship. You know, there are fundamental things. And I remember one of the things that he mentioned was loyalty. For me, loyalty is like my number one thing. I just feel without loyalty, and this is a conversation we had the other day, not about us, but just, you know, in general, if you can, it's hard to trust someone. I mean, let me put it different. It's hard to trust someone if they're not loyal. Because loyalty and trust are inseparable.
True.
Right? And he had a view that someone can be loyal and maybe not trustworthy, right? But I think the two come or go hand in hand. And I'm not trying to get us to dive into that particular conversation, but one thing I can tell you is he's a very loyal friend. If there's someone I can call at 3 in the morning and he'll be there, I can count on him. We've never had a conversation about, if I called you, bro, would you show up? It's not, you just know. You just know.
Okay.
And likewise, if he called me at any time of the night, I would show up.
Even if I don't call.
like he did with Pastor Nancy, 11, I'm here.
And you know, the Bible talks about Paul.
Yeah.
I think discernment is needed.
Yeah.
Paul has co-workers, co-laborers, comrades, sons. So you have to know who's in your life, and don't treat a comrade like a son.
That's true.
I think that's where we struggle. So
So you have to have discernment, because certain qualities will play out in sonship that won't play out in camaraderie. For instance, Caleb was not Joshua's spiritual son.
No.
But Caleb was so crucial to Joshua's vision. He was like a co-visionary, like a co-founder. He was like a co-laborer. Are we together? So I think in life, you have to know those that have come as dear brothers. You have to know who is Priscilla in your life, who is Afia, who is this that God has brought into my life, who are the angels. And that comes with the gift of discernment.
Okay.
And time will tell you. So with Dawn, time has proved we were not just university companions, because we're other Kenyans. Why did ours blossom into this long life relationship?
So when did you know? He said he had an impression. When did you know?
I don't think there was a mark.
Okay.
I think things just evolve, and as they evolve, revelation happens. That now I know. Even God tested Abraham by asking him to offer Isaac. And when the knife was up, and in his heart, Abraham had sacrificed, he had killed his son in his heart.
Right.
God says, Abraham, stop. Now I know. And I think friendships will go through trials that will get us to the place where a friend can now say, now I know. Why? I saw what happened when I was sick, when my son was sick. I saw what happened when I had no food, when I had no... As you go through life, you just know. Because in life, you'll know the person didn't show up because they're a co-worker. Yeah, and you had the expectation that they were a sister, but they were a co-worker. Your
Which
trials...
can be very painful.
Let me answer you this way. Your trials, your victories will reveal to you who is around you. Yes, you will know. And I think sometimes our disappointment is you had placed a co-worker at a brother level. Yes.
Okay.
That's where you get disappointed. I've seen pastors who get disappointed. They think everybody's a spiritual son. That's not how God has organized it.
That's right.
God will bring you co-laborers. God will bring you co-workers. But if you go calling everybody son, everybody's a son, everybody's a daughter. No, some are there for a season, 2-3 years to help you lift up your hands, and they're gone. And you should be grateful that they passed through to do what God called them to do.
That's
how.
So well said.
But how do you say that this is a son over time? You get to realize, this is, so things of God take time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So between the two of you, you're more in the limelight, Julian. Then is that a thing that you've had to deal with?
In one sentence? What do you mean?
Like you're building houses, you're doing Beulah, there's ministry, all your businesses. You're more the public face of your enterprises. Has that ever come up as an issue?
No, never. In fact, it's interesting you bring that up. Someone asked me a couple of years back, I remember this, when we were all under one roof at church. And somebody came and said, how is it that you and Rev are so close, yet, he's the guy who's at the forefront, he's the one who's, leading, you call him your spiritual authority, yet you guys are boys. How do you deal with that? And I remember telling him, I've never even thought about it the way you've put it. Like, I've never seen it as a thing.
Okay.
Does that make sense? It's when you know who you are and you're comfortable in who you are, you never quite think about this other person, or it's like thinking like your son. He never quite ever gets to the place where he thinks, man, everyone's talking about mommy, everyone's looking up to mommy, it's just knowing who you are.
For him, it's his mommy experience. He doesn't have another one. But I have friends who have voiced that annoyance, that they turn up places and people look over their shoulder like, yeah, it's nice to see you, where's Valentine? And
I'll be honest, it's never been a thing that has crossed my mind at all. And fast forward even to the point of going into ministry, because for me, and he knew this,
Yes.
I never ever wanted to become a pastor. That's number one. And I was happy about his call. And when he said first that he wants to start the ministry, and this was back in 2006, I remember.
Yeah, I remember we just had our 16-year anniversary.
Yeah. And he came to us, his wife, my wife, myself, and we were taking a drive, and he said, this is what God has called me to doing. Man, I always knew he was going to be in ministry. I knew that, right? I knew I was going to be a supporter of ministry. And I was very clear about that. It was nothing that, and one of the things that, it'll be good to say even on maybe on this show is, even at the point where I was being asked to do ministry, it wasn't him who came up and said, I think you, which is interesting because you would think, and there are people who think because he's my friend, that's why I'm a pastor today. Had nothing to do with that. Absolutely nothing to do with it, right? In as much as he's my spiritual authority and he's the head of Ruach Ministries, it was never his idea for me to become. In fact, I think he was equally as shocked, if not more shocked, that it was suggested that I head an assembly.
Were you shocked?
I mean, it was a prayer item.
Okay.
About who will go. And his name started coming up from various points in prayer, in prophecy, in confirmation, but it wasn't prescribed. It was not prescribed, but I wasn't shocked.
Oh, really?
I wasn't
never had
shocked.
this conversation, by the way.
I was not shocked because I'm not shocked by what God is going to say or do in terms of God will use anyone.
That's true.
In his case, and I'll answer you this way. I mean, I know in everything there could be a forerunner, there could be a person, but God's agenda is very interesting, and the way God does things is very interesting. Right now in Nigeria, Bishop Oyedebo's associate or assistant is called, I think it's called David Abioye. And the kind of things that he's doing now, right? Sometimes there are those who their work is to create platforms. The John the Baptist can come to create platforms for Jesus to come. Right? I've never been a big fan of who got there first. It is, have we done the will of God in our lives? Because God giving us life, we have a long way to go.
That's right.
Some of these men I'm talking about are in their probably early 70s, going into their 80s. We've done ministry for 15, 16 years.
Yeah, that's right.
What if we have 35 years left to do ministry? Are we together?
Yes.
There's a time that will come when nobody will know. The sons will all be doing amazing things because somebody had to start. But that person may actually end up taking a bit of a back seat and allow the sons to take it further. So the important thing is that we got started. And he can tell you, between the two of us, are more of the manga. God just trusted the manga to obey quicker, because
I never knew he knew that he was.
You didn't know that he knew.
Don does this interior construction, so in his head he's very structured. Yeah, I'm a creative. I'm like this shirt. He's like his shirt.
You mean the dress?
We've even dressed like we are. His shirt has lines, contours. Mine is patterns.
And thank you for changing, both of you. Thank you for dressing up for the interview. Because
mine is patterns. This is how I think and how I operate.
Bright
this
colors.
Is how Dawn thinks. No, I'm talking about the patterns. Forget the colors. This is how Dawn thinks. Very structured, line after line. So people like Dawn do well coming to bring order into chaos. Are we together? And God allows it to work just like that.
Okay.
And our lives are like that.
People do say visionaries. A visionary needs a COO, an operating.
We're not good at the details. We struggle with detail.
Yes.
We're good at the big picture, but God has to give you detailed people to help bring order into the vision. Otherwise, you can have big vision and just consistent chaos. Yeah. And I think that's really what happened. And how I believe God just designed it to be from birth.
Okay. How do you deal with failure?
Let Donna answer that one.
You don't know about failure?
Of course I know about failure. My God, I used to be called to professor.
On a personal level?
On a personal level, on a friendship level, like supporting each other through failure. You know, as an entrepreneur, it's part of the journey, isn't it? We don't like to talk about failure too much, but it's very much inherent. If you're expecting success, you should also prepare for failure. Maybe I should say biggest failure you've had to deal with.
Wow. Those are like 4 different
No, let's start with the
questions.
biggest failure, then talk about dealing with it and recovering.
Wow.
I've got mine online. I think I've talked about some business failures, so people can go and watch.
You don't watch?
Biggest failure. Oh my goodness. I mean, there are so many that can come to mind. Failing is a part and parcel of growth. I really believe so. Let me say this, and I feel very, very inclined to say this. One thing I've learned from him is he operates with some crazy level of faith. His faith level is so high, and he thinks it's normal to have that level of faith. Now, I must say this. I always knew theoretically what faith was. It was something you studied, you've heard and everything. But I have learned faith through him.
Oh, wow. Where's the offering basket?
I take dollars, by the way.
To my pesa.
But I have learned how to live a life of faith through him.
Wow.
Yeah. In all that chaos that he was talking about, and all that madness and trying to drive this and drive that, I learned faith because he actually has the gift of faith, which is a gift. Right? It's a gift.
It is.
Yeah. And it's not everyone who possesses the gift of faith. To be able to say something and move in a direction without seeing anything that says it could actually happen. Now, when I left employment in 2010 and I decided I'm going to go into business, I drew a lot of strength from him without him knowing. A lot of strength.
I'm hearing all this
because you know, I used to hear him say things, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, and then it comes to pass. And I had the purview of understanding that there was no indication that it would actually happen. then it would come to pass. And I started to walk in faith because of my relationship with him.
You had a front row seat.
I had a front row seat, and I said, man, let me try this thing. And since 2010, I can tell you my faith has grown progressively. I mean, today, what I was faithing God for, a year ago and 10 years ago is not what I'm faithing God for today, because it has grown, it's progressive, it's one step to another.
Okay.
So is failure. I have learned a lot of failure and how to maneuver through failure from him. Because of the grace that he carries, even through failure, even through things that didn't work out, and things that you hoped would have gone a certain way, and it doesn't go that way, it doesn't mean that it's the end of the world.
What do you mean by the grace for failure?
So the grace I'm talking about here is he has an ability of looking at things that didn't turn out in the way he thought it would turn out, and then be able to repackage it or recalibrate from it in such a graceful way, in such a manner that it doesn't destroy. Being able to see something and say, look, this was supposed to have turned out like this, it didn't turn out like that, but what do we have?
And I still have faith in God.
And I still have faith in God, because God is unchanging. Even through failure, God is unchanging. And I can tell you, and you see, it's not anything that he would come and tell me. It's what I have learned by observing his life that speaks louder.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so deep, I want to cry.
Yeah. The offering is keeping on going up.
It's dollars, you
We're
said,
now
yeah?
at about 13, maybe $13,500. So, so I'll tell you, Valentine, even when I think about my greatest failures, it's funny when you ask that question, I actually think about the greatest lessons I have learned from the failure.
And people look at it as failure.
Yeah.
I don't. I actually think you just have to make it once.
Absolutely.
So listen to the secret. I think you only have to make it once. Like making it. Like that place of success that is defined between you and God. You only have to make it once. Why would Abraham be in Egypt to borrow food? Is that failure? I mean, this is a man who was moved by faith,
Absolutely.
come to the promised land, and is in Egypt borrowing food. Is that failure? In man's eyes, it may be, but not in God's eyes. So, we have to trust the word God has given us to the very end. And this is why I think that Proverbs 3 became so special to me. The first 11 verses of Proverbs chapter 3 read out some amazing, amazing things. And that includes trust in the Lord, verse 5, with all your heart. All means all, right? So when God gave Beulah to us, the Beulah journey has had Egypt moments of going to borrow food. That's right. But here we are breaking ground today. Were we failures 4 years ago for borrowing food in Egypt? So what do you say about breaking ground today? If God said you're building a fintech, here we are today building it. Did the first one work out? Maybe not the way you thought. But is there a fintech? Is it happening? Yes. Did the church go through some tough moments? Yes. But let me tell you a dynamic most people don't understand. And why sometimes you find it is not an excuse. Why you find it's very hard in this day to have a ministry is because there was a time from the days of the Roman Catholic Church and how they'd coordinate with governments, because they had government to government agreements, that they'd even agree how land would be given to them for development and things like that. Land is not given to us in these 17 years. We have to figure out where you raise 200 million shillings to buy an acre of land in Nairobi. Are we together? So people try to become funny with how they do things for ministry.
Yeah.
We have to trust God for the assignment He gave us, that the challenges of the day, because there are people who had to do ministry during the Great Depression. That's right. So I don't look at it as failure, because was David a failure when Absalom was overthrowing his throne? Or did David die as a king? Human beings have the tendency to look at you in the third paragraph as if you're in the 10th paragraph.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And David gets to a point, he says, I've been young, now I'm old.
I haven't seen.
I've never seen the righteous forsaken, or their children begging for bread.
Yeah.
At the end. So what we must do is we must teach people that what matters is the finish line. And in the finish line, then make a proper assessment. And that's why you giving up removes the privilege from God.
That's right.
For demonstrating your victory of what he was planning for you at the end. Because the end actually is what matters.
That's
your
right.
end may be at 3 years old. Your end might be at 75 years old. Your end might be at 103. But that end, because I've gone and done children's funerals who died at 15 days. And the testimonies and people that are crying and giving their lives and rededicating their lives to God, a 15-day-old baby is causing more return to God than a man who has lived for 75 years.
Right.
So, finish your race. It is when you finish that you can say, I have run my race.
That's right.
Okay.
I now have a crown that you get to know. So failure is in the eyes of man. Separate the eyes of man from the eyes of God.
That's
and
right.
let me tell you, Valentine and Pastor Don, I have heard things. That guy. I remember when I was busy talking about some things on media, and we were talking about Beulah, and I could see comments like, oh, this will end in tears.
Premium
People
tears.
are going to be conned. Premium tears.
Yeah, that Kenyan phrase,
That
premium tears.
Premium tears. This will end in tears because people speak from their place of insecurity.
Yeah.
And they generalize. But we must learn. That's where now you come and you take. Don't go for the people talk about eating lettuce and onions in Egypt. Go for what has God said.
That's right.
Because God is not always in the majority of streets.
Absolutely.
He's in the detail of his word. Stay there and finish.
And finish.
Amen.
Okay. We're not done.
Ah,
We're not done.
Oh, wow.
We're not done at all. Who's the cool uncle?
Who's the cool uncle?
Who's the cool uncle?
Yes, you.
I'll tell
Are
you,
you
I
strict?
have a confession. I'm not strict. I'm just, I just need grace with children.
You know, I think I saw this during the Christmas
I
deck
have-
the halls.
I have about a 15-minute threshold
Window.
During
that
the-
15 minutes we can. Anyway, let me not say that. God gives me the grace, but he's a really cool uncle.
Okay.
He sits down.
Oh, dear.
He wants to play the games. He wants to do. I'm serious. He's a really cool uncle. They'll confide in him. They'll tell him things. So
yours
I think
is
they,
a
I think
sleepover
they look at
house.
me like that strict uncle.
The
They're
strict
just like, this
uncle.
uncle doesn't talk.
No.
I could
no.
tell
I think,
during Deck the Halls.
No. By the way,
the kids
so-
were sitting in front of you. I was emceeing with Shama, and I could see. I was like,
That was a passing gas situation. Though. That was a passing gas situation. That had nothing to do with my
you
patience.
don't-
That was just.
he did not kick the kids.
I love children. I was at Rema Kids. We were teaching them. Lord, God is helping me. So, but
He's
Uncle,
being hard.
Uncle
He's being
Wise is really cool.
Okay.
He's being tough on
No,
you.
I'm being honest. Uncle Wise is the one. He takes a trophy. Even
Okay.
I've accepted that. I've said it's okay. Let him
You're
take
like,
the
it's
uncle
okay, I'm not
trophy.
good at
Yeah.
everything. Okay, I don't think I've missed any of the planned questions. So now it's time for some quick fire questions.
Wow.
Where I want you to point at each other when for the answer. It's who is most likely to do, right?
Okay.
Just to finish on a light
Okay.
note. Okay, so who is more likely to spend too much time on shopping? Too much money. Sorry, not time. Okay, most likely to finish last in a race.
You said last or first?
Last.
I heard correctly.
You have evidence?
I heard correctly.
I have evidence. Ask his children.
Is this any race?
I think we need a race. I think we
No,
need
is this any race?
running.
Running. No, okay, I was pointing about walking. Walking
No,
race.
no.
He's the last.
I was second. Use your
Okay.
salvation to
Second
tell the
last.
truth.
Second last.
Second.
We might need a race.
Let's just say they were putting down the ribbon when he was racing.
This is Quickfire. It's not questions.
They didn't think that there was someone still on the field. And it was 100
Rapid
years.
That
fire
bad.
questions.
That
Let's go.
bad. Most likely
And
to.
the children just say, Daddy, honestly, why did you even go for that?
It made us look bad.
Lord
We
Jesus.
need video. We need video. Okay. Most
have
likely
to-
to try new things.
Most likely
To try new things.
to try new things.
I thought you would. Yeah, I thought you would point at Julian. Okay.
New food, new things.
Yeah, you have a thing about food. You talk about
I'm
it
not
even in your
adventurous.
sermons.
He's
You're
very
like, I don't do
He's a
sushi.
very
I don't do.
adventurous diner.
Aha. Okay. Most likely to break traffic laws. That's you.
Even today.
All the
They
fingers.
they shall be broken even today.
Okay. Most likely to talk their way out of a tight spot.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. Buys the best gifts. Oh, okay. Well, shopping buys the best gifts.
Yeah.
Okay. Who has the best poker face?
Poker face.
Can we see the poker face?
I don't even know what he's thinking.
Aha. Okay. Okay. Most
I
likely.
don't have a poker face. You can tell. I'm stretched. You will read it here.
Most likely to cry.
To cry. To cry about what?
Is that what? So he uses humor to deflect.
Really?
Okay.
Actually,
Okay.
I've never seen you crying.
That's what I'm wondering. To cry about what?
Actually, I think I cry more than you.
When's the last time you cried?
Closer
And
to
not
God.
in worship.
I'm closer to. I'm more in touch with God.
When's the last time you cried? And not in worship.
Or not in worship.
Not in
then
worship.
if not in worship. I don't think I've seen this guy cry.
Ah. Interesting.
I
once
cry
in a while.
inside a lot. I do.
Most likely to call mom.
Forward.
Are you a mama's boy? But you're the only son.
Yeah, but he's more. He will call mom. Just point at yourself. Thank you.
Okay. Most likely to sneak out of the meeting.
Any
No?
meeting.
Any meeting.
I think him.
I think so.
I
Okay.
don't know.
I
Okay.
don't know. Don't
For
even-
good reason. For good reason.
Don't even sneak into the meeting.
Let's sneak to the meeting. Okay. So last and final question. Please recite a Bible verse in Swahili.
Hey, Jesus.
You even married Taita women, and there's no Swahili verse. Nothing. Last and final question. Bible verse in Swahili. Please.
Komana jinsi hii
Oh, wole kwao.
ati ole kwao.
That means
Ole wangu, you mean?
This is
Ole
terrible.
kwao.
Ole kwao.
No, this is not good. This is going
Na
to
Yesu akalia.
And then
John 3:35.
John is.
Is it John 6:30? John 7:35. John
you have to say it
3:35.
in Swahili.
Oh. Yesu akalia. Akalia. Akalia.
And,
Yohana.
and John is Yohana Kumina.
Tunakubali. Endelea. Yohana.
I
Mstari wa-
have no idea. My Swahili is worse than everyone's.
I think I know one. Na Yesu akamwambia Yeshua. Joshua.
Is Joshua Yeshua? I thought Yeshua is Yesu.
Yeshua. Uwe mwaminifu na uwe na nguvu. I can't remember the courage part.
When did Jesus
This was-
talk to Joshua?
This was I know. This is the message version in Swahili.
This is a message, but okay, let me make it easier for you. Do one in Kikuyu and do one in Kamba.
Jesus. Ay.
I'm making it worse. I'm making it worse.
Yeah.
Na Yesu aya.
Ekegai alile. Jesu akirira. Akirira.
We have to work on that. Next
Yeah,
interview,
I know.
I'll have a
You'll have-
Swahili chapter.
Okay, okay. Is there a parting shot? Why did you say yes to this interview? It's your channel, so I think you just had to say yes.
I didn't say yes.
He was dragged down.
He was
He was
flung.
flung
He was
into the
flung
interview.
into the
I was
interview.
flung into the, no, but this is good. I mean, I really appreciate what you know Don's strength and background. He used to do media for Lakewood Church, and was
Oh,
very
that's huge.
creative. That was huge, right? And so I believe one of the gifts God has given him is in this media world. He's very creative about how God is using him in this space. So I believe when he invited me, I knew. People throw business questions at me, I'll answer them. Personal ones take me a while to accept those kind of interviews because I like to keep that life private. But when he asked me, I knew that God will use him somehow in this, conversation to bring us into the place of the gifting God has given him, but also to help someone.
Okay.
And you know what you should do in this show?
Yeah.
That conversation about husbands and wives. I think it's a conversation our generation needs to hear with authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a plan.
I think there's a plan.
And a conversation.
Does it sound like something I mentioned?
I knew. I was wondering when she was going to throw that in.
Like something
But there's
I
a plan.
mentioned?
There's a plan.
Okay.
Because
There's
I
a plan
think
in the
young
works.
people who are getting married, it's shocking to see that people are spending 2 years, 3 years and calling it a day. I think as men, we need to talk to our young brothers. Just real talk and be vulnerable enough to say, listen, it will not be a bed of roses. You will have seasons. For me as a pastor, going through a season with my wife is tormenting because people have this expectation that you guys are supposed to be the epitome of, I don't buy into that pressure. I believe we have to let a season be a season and let God finish doing in a season what he's doing in that season. At the end, we're not told Abraham did not talk to Abraham for 4 years, but they probably had their
Abraham and Sarah,
their
yes.
moments. What did I say?
Abraham and Abraham. I was a bit concerned.
Abraham
We
and
need to
Sarah.
cut that.
They
Sorry,
actually didn't end up together. Abraham ended up with a second wife.
Yeah, Keturah.
Yes.
But after she died. But
And Sarah died far from Abraham.
She did. They're married separately.
So the point I want to make is you two.
We're about to cut. No, we're gonna.
The point I want to make is that we have to help people understand that your life is not in the paragraphs people want to dictate.
That's right.
Your life is a story. And so be cautious not to allow anyone to give you your destiny's end in a paragraph. In a paragraph season.
Okay.
The whole story must end. And that's when you can really know this is what God was doing here.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's so well said.
Okay.
So well said.
That's my parting shot.
Really? I was about to ask about fatherhood. We didn't talk about fatherhood at all. Nice when it's occurring to me.
Oh.
We didn't talk about fatherhood.
That's a story for another day. It's a very long story.
It is a very long story. What's your favorite part about fatherhood?
Oh man.
Or your favorite aspect of it?
It's amazing. It's amazing to be given, for God to give you children. It's a miracle, and we should not take it for granted. I think parenting is a work of the Holy Spirit. Again, just like marriage, it's a lifetime commitment. However, it's a different kind of lifetime commitment to a marriage. But it is a lifetime commitment, but it's a gift. It's a gift. When I sit with my boys, I can't describe the joy that comes out of it. But let Pastor Don tell us.
What has surprised you about you in fatherhood?
What has surprised me about me in fatherhood? That's a great question. I used to look at my father in a particular way, and I used to wonder why is he coming down on me so harshly on one or two things, and it's always caught my attention. Sometimes when maybe I'm in the middle of thinking about something or doing something, and my son comes and does something, and I'm just like, stop that, and I'm like, where did I hear that? That the apple sometimes is the tree, is a thing that quickly becomes a reality when you're doing parenting. But I have loved being a father, and I must say this just to make him feel bad, especially to girls.
You say this all the time, even to me, because I have a son.
I do.
Sunday, he called me out in church. Valentine, you will never know the love.
Look, it's something that is so special and so different. You kind of feel like your level of responsibility is even taken a notch higher, because I think girls rely on their fathers a little more than boys do in some aspects, or they look up to their fathers in one way or another. But anyway, that's about fatherhood. There's something he said a few minutes ago, and I wanted to kind of add to that. One of the things that I believe is people don't look at men of God or pastors like they're human beings. And there is such a high expectation.
Oh yes, you're not allowed to have a tough season.
To perform.
You're sitting with Jesus like this. How can you have a tough?
Yeah. So there's a really high expectation to perform in a particular way. I like something somebody told me the other day, and they said that now because you're not a celebrity, your celebrity is in church. And it means anybody who comes to your church or is within the church circles looks at you as a celebrity. And so they want to poke into all your affairs to know what's going on, and because they're not, quote unquote, out in the world celebrating other celebrities, they're in church, and that's why the expectation is high. I get it, I understand. But one of the things I really believe is people need to know that everyone is in a season in one way or another. Those seasons are not always great. I'll give you a case in point. Michelle Obama writes the book on Becoming. And she says in there, for 10 years, her and Barack, she didn't even think they had a marriage. Yeah, for 10 years, it was hell on earth. But she says, for 20 years, they've had a great time. So when you look at the entire spectrum, and going back to what he said, you may judge someone when they're on chapter 4, yet, there are 30 chapters to the book. So it's to give people time to also understand that people are human beings first before they have even gotten into their calling. There is the calling, but then they're also human. So
even during the calling.
So don't mix the two.
I just think judgment from human beings is overrated.
Yeah. Very, very.
It's overrated. You allow it to do the damage to you if you choose to. You can ignore it. You can actually ignore judgment from human beings. You can.
And move forward.
Follow your calling. I mean, just imagine Joseph committing suicide in prison because he's being judged for having raped Potiphar's wife, which he didn't do. No, just be judged. Move on with life. I think you take it more seriously than you should. Yeah, I think the judgment you should be worried about is God. I think you need to position human beings at a particular place and let their judgment just roll off your shoulders, especially when it's not true. And if it's true, go before God. David said, I'd rather be in the hands of God any time than in the hands of men. Absolutely. Be in the hands of God.
Okay.
Yeah, be in the hands. There's a great message preached. I don't know if it was by Billy Graham. I'd rather be, I can't remember who it is. I don't think it's Billy Graham, but it says, I'd rather be in the hands of an angry God than in the hands of men.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because God has attributes of mercy that you cannot attribute. So I think pastor, layman, I actually think bankers go through a lot.
Yeah.
I think teachers go through a lot.
Engineers,
I think architects go through. I think
doctors.
engineers go through a lot. They just don't have a pulpit to say it. I think human beings go through a lot. And if you're a leader in any capacity, even in the small unit of a family of 4 people, you go through a lot. Guess what? Don't allow the opinions of people, which is, I keep teaching, it's the lowest form of knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
An opinion is the lowest form of knowledge. 95% of people's decisions are made based on other people's opinions.
No facts, no figures.
You need to make opinions based on truth, which is the highest level of knowledge. There are about 5 others in between, 4 others in between. Make decisions based on truth, not opinion.
That's right.
So give time for truth, and truth doesn't have to advertise itself. It will speak. Eventually, truth will always come out. It will.
I think that's very powerful, especially with social media. We're finding more and more young people weighing life decisions based on what they're seeing on Instagram and TikTok. And
we must teach them, and they must know 80% of that stuff out there is fake. People are not putting their truths out on social media. It's manufactured. Right? So I think there's so much going on. Oh, we are hurt as church members. Oh, we are hurt as pastors. Oh, we are hurt as worship teams. I agree. There's pain. There's pain. Pain is part of growth. How we all collaborate this thing into personal destinies that God has given us will come out from a place of courage and grit. All of us have a reason to complain. All of us.
Yeah.
All of us have something we feel has unjustly been done to us. And all of us have someone to blame. Yeah.
Okay.
But some people will come out and make it, and some won't.
Some will not. Okay. What do you do for fun?
Work.
But seriously, what do you do for fun?
Wow.
Because you work, your offices are right next to each other. So you're working together, you're doing everything
we
together.
Go out
when
a
do
lot. We like to eat a lot. That's one thing. I mean, we like to experiment. That's where I come in with the experimenting. So we go to different restaurants, different things like that. We both like movies. So we've gone to the movies several times. Yeah, not just him and I. Please don't look at it like that. That's also happened.
It's okay to go to the movies. It's just the two of you.
This thing is so twisted, in today's day and age.
I actually think homosexuals have robbed heterosexual men
We're
of opportunities.
We're cutting this off. Whatever she's saying, please
opportunities for
she's right.
Yeah, for affection and friendship, where you have to say things like no homo. Why do you have to say that? Most of the world is heterosexual.
This is true. Yeah, what else? I guess, what else? We don't travel as much as we used to. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I just want you to know I know.
Okay.
You know, but you're not making the school run. Do you ever make the school run?
Hardly.
Okay.
I desire to, but yeah, my travel has been heavy.
Okay.
So school runs have become difficult, but when I can, I do. Okay. Yeah, when I can, I do. I hope I could get it to where I have twice or thrice a week of school runs. But at the moment in this season, it's been tough.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't lie, it's been very tough to do school runs. I do my best to be there for as many of their activities as I can make it for.
Okay.
As many as possible. I don't want to ever miss a recital, an art day, pottery, whatever.
He's really improved. I've helped him.
You've helped him?
Greatly.
This is your burden now.
Yeah, this one was my burden. Really? And also the shoes. We need to show the picture of the shoes again. But what do you do for fun? You didn't answer her question.
So we used to love playing tennis.
Uh-huh.
I want to get back into that. We're hoping to put a basketball court at the church.
Oh, nice.
So that we can get back into basketball. Because I think we need to keep fit, man. We're not doing well.
Especially you.
No. The two of us are not doing well. Don't be fooled. He likes walking.
That's it?
He likes running.
Is
just doesn't do a good job.
Is there swimming in your future? Golf in your future?
I love swimming. I don't do it as often, but I do love swimming.
Okay.
Golfing is one I must pick up at some point. I keep saying we are very, very competitive. That's another thing. So what happens is when we get into a sport or something that we like to do, we could easily get addicted. So we used to play tennis all night when we were in college. All night on Fridays. And I won't give the rest of it.
I'm waiting for the rest of the story. I know this story.
We'll do it in part B.
You had the keys to something and you worked 2 hours away. You've told me this before.
Yeah. Tennis, basketball, pool. Yeah, and we played a lot of pool together.
Okay.
So those are hobbies. Privately, I've started becoming quite an avid reader and writer.
Are there books coming?
Yeah, they're coming and fast, because I don't know, I've just entered a zone I can't explain. I'm writing more than I've ever written before, so it's just coming out.
That's amazing.
I'm excited. So
what are you writing about?
So I've got some I've got a book that's been in my heart for over 5 years. And it was titled The Inevitable. I don't know if that will still be its title. And that was to just deal with what should we expect to see and how should we tackle what we're going to see in our generation.
Oh.
Yeah. I've got a book I'm writing for the Kingdom Academy that's starting. So it's just taking all these pieces. Some are papers, I think they'll become books. And taking certain positions on certain matters about how people should look at things in Africa and where I believe God is taking us as a continent. So it's a lot coming out there, but I don't know what's going on.
You need to write on faith.
And write on faith, now that he's told me about that. I really think that's,
so maybe essays, different topics.
Yeah, different subjects, different topics, and then pile it all together. But I'm also getting some ghost writers to help me so that we just put it all together. Books are now inevitable. We have to write them.
Okay.
I'm just getting ghosts.
So okay, thank you very much, Donald and Julian. You see, it doesn't flow calling you Donald and Julian. I'm trying. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I've been meaning to ask, and I've been a guest host, Valentine Njoroge, and Donald Gichane will be back from the next episode. Mwah.